Thank you so much for joining us. How has this strike affected daily life there? You know, it really seems that life in the UK is changing every minute. And of course, you've got the cost of living crisis.
Well, absolutely. The life in the UK is definitely changing, and it's all as this after effect of the pandemic. I mean, that has largely impacted the amount of people using trains. There's been a 30% decrease in the number of people using trains. And then if you combine that with the cost of living crisis, of course, then people are unable to afford it, and the people who are also working here are clamoring for a pay rise. Today is not as dramatic as we expected. There isn't really much of a disruption on the London Underground, which is known as the Tube here. However, inside of the King's Cross station, trains leaving here to outside of London have a lot more disruption. Some are slightly delayed and some have been cancelled. However, tomorrow is when the wide strike is meant to take place across the trains and the tubes, and also some buses are also scheduled to strike as well. Of course, that, as you can imagine, will cause a huge disruption to people's daily lives. But today we've just seen remnants, if you like, of what is to come tomorrow.
And Lape, there's also so much disruption politically. The country's in the middle of a leadership contest. So what is the response then from the government?
It's an interesting question you asked there, and predominantly the response from the government has been these so-called talks between the RMT unions, who are the unions for railway networks and so on. But there hasn't been a conclusive agreement as of yet, which is why these strikes are still taking place. Aside from that, the focus is the cost of living crisis, because that's why these strikes are emerging in their large numbers. It's worth noting here, it's not just the tubes and the trains that are striking. There are all other sectors that are set to strike as well. And it's all down to this cost of living crisis, which is embedded in taxes and inflation. The two contenders of that leadership that is set to be announced in September are both stating that they want to tackle either tax or inflation. There isn't, or hasn't been a clear-cut detailed plan of how they're going to do that, but it's certainly pertinent to many people that live across this country.
Thank you so much for that update, Lape Olarinoye, live there from London's King's Cross station. Thank you so much. Well,